every week, revealing new resources to mine and points of interests to explore. This ever-changing environment offers endless exploration, but also endless conflict. Each house in the Landsraad desires a specific control point in the deep desert. Seize it and hold it over time to gain their vote. Fortify it and be ready for a fight. Other players will soon come to take it from you. The deep desert is also home to frequent spice blows, offering large quantities of the precious melange. You need a lot of spice. Once you've located a spice blow, move your harvesters in place to collect. Just be ready to defend it with your life. After a week of politics, manufacturing, and conflict, one side emerges victoriously. The Harkonnen have seized the Landsraad, and the leaders of the player guilds who contributed to their victory all get to vote for a decree that will impact everyone on a server belonging to that world. They choose to unlock exclusive weapon imports rights. By decree of the Landsraad Council, under the seal of His Imperial Majesty, a trade consortium has been authorized to visit Arrakis, providing Harkonnen players with exclusive access to a unique weapons vendor in Harko Village. As the Harkonnen Landsraad term begins, the race for control in the next term
Welcome back. No technical problems at all. It's all fine. No one would have noticed if you didn't say anything, Scott.
Sorry. That's my job. Pretty sure I couldn't hear it, but I'm pretty sure it cut off mid-VO.
It probably did. Yes, I couldn't hear it either. But the video is going to be available after the stream anyway, so you can watch it in all its glory. Landsraad. Talking about Landsraad, so let's go to the next segment. Endgame and Landsraad. So we know people have, of course, expectations of what the endgame and Landsraad, and especially Deep Desert, looks like, and what it's for, and how people will use the Deep Desert, and how it works. A lot of those things. But I think before we go into more details and show some really exciting gameplay as well, Joel, I think it'd be cool to talk about the vision for what the endgame is supposed to be, right?
Yeah. I think, like, going back to when I joined the project, so this is 5 years ago, right? And we were talking about what is a good survival game, like, because Dune, we were making a Dune survival game, and we were talking about what is the vision for an end game in Dune, and the kind of the goal and the idea, at least in the beginning, was like we started with, hey, like, you start by surviving in the desert, and it's that raw nature versus mankind kind of thing. It's the sun, it's the sandworms, it's the storms, but then you move into this new mode of survival, which is political survival, which is the end game of the game needs to be about these big forces, right? The Imperium is made up of the great houses, the Landsraad, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, Chome. All of these things have an influence, and you as a player are just a small cog in the machine but we want you to be able to feel like you're participating in this big umbrella system. And so we started there. And then we talked about, like, there's an element of, like, I think very technical game design here where we talk about player activity cycles through the week. I was looking at, like, games like Rust. You know, Rust has their server resets, which is great for, like, people to start building up, and people really enjoy that cycle. But a lot of people also love having their stuff and not losing it. And so we talked about, like, okay, what about a place, and in Dune it's perfect, right? You have these Coriolis storms, and there's scenes in the book where the sand is just tearing apart cliff faces and ripping down the things in the desert and revealing things from beneath the sand. And so we said, okay, what if we had a map, the deep desert, and in the deep desert, the landscape changes every week. How does that affect gameplay? And then we started there and we talked about, okay, what about if there's a cycle of events that we want players to go through? And again, this is a high-level design.
We might actually have an infographic or a visual asset for that. A week cycle of...
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Cool. Fun. You guys are on top of things. I know nothing. Oh, no, sorry. That's
Not this one.
Not that one. But okay. Either way, I can
maybe
just
it's not right. Maybe we didn't.
I can just keep talking.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Sorry, everyone. I know it's just boring old Joel. But like we wanted to approach this right. So we were like, okay, what if there's a map that resets and the map changes every week so that it's an infinitely explorable space? And we worked backwards from there and we said, how do we build a lot of our game systems towards this? So we started with the idea of, yes, the map resets. When would we want to reset the map? Let's say we reset it on the lowest player activity day of the week, right? Which tends to be a Tuesday night or a Wednesday in these kind of online games. And then we're like, okay, and then there's this activity we call scouting and cartography. And then we built a game mechanic around cartography and scouting, which I think we're going to show in a little bit. And that is, and maybe you saw it, we definitely tutorialized it in the beta, you reveal parts of the map. And then we made it so that you can save those maps and sell them to other players. So we create a loop there for players who are scouts, and that happens, let's say, you know, in a player activity week, it happens during the low ebb. The deep desert gets revealed. Everybody needs information. How do we make information a commodity? We create a cartography and a scouting system. Then once that information is gathered, people share it with their friends and their guilds. Then they start setting up what we call a logistics plan. How am I going to control the spaces in the deep desert that I want to control? What is my guild looking for? Are we looking for spice? Are we looking for unique schematics? Are we going after shipwrecks? Are we going after the ecology labs that have been revealed? Like, what are we doing this week? So then they go set up. And then the weekend, which is when the highest player activity count is, that's when people are online. And that's where people really participate in the activities in the deep desert, whether that is running ecology labs with their friends or shipwrecks or fighting over, like, control points in the deep desert. And then after the weekend, I should say, on top of this as an umbrella is the Landsrad. And the Landsrad are asking you to do activities that take place both in the deep desert, but also outside of the deep desert. Exactly. There's a lot of PvE stuff in there. And then at the end of that activity cycle, everybody votes. It sets a server-wide change, like a worldwide, I think we should say in our terminology. It changes every rule set in the world can be changed by the Landsrad. And then the Coriolis storm happens again on a Tuesday, and we start over again with a new weekly cycle. And this is kind of the vision and dream for how the end game should play out and how we would like it to work. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how that we've set everything up for this to be the case, but of course, no plan survives first contact with players. So another point I would like to make is just we're a live game. We'll continue to tweak and update these things. But let's maybe look at and talk about it. Yeah?
Yes, let's look at some gameplay, actually, some activities that you might be wanting to do. So we have, like, actually a team here that will now go into the desert.
Okay, so we've gone through the overland map.
Yeah, we're in the
shield wall, which is the southern part of the deep desert.
It's the PvE area.
Correct, yeah.
This is the PvE space.
It was important for us so that people that are scared of PvP or reluctant to get engaged with it, right, that they had a place in the deep desert that they could go to without, instantly getting killed as soon as you're coming through, like in warping in, right, gate camping or whatever from other games. And this is also where you set up your base of operations,
yes.
The very first area, because the deep desert is gigantic. There's no water here.
Yes.
And you need to have the logistics set up, and
yep.
like you can go there by yourself. Like I fly there on beta. I try to stay away from people because, as we said, we're not great at PvP necessarily.
People call it ratting. Right?
Yeah, ratting.
You can go in and rat.
Oh, I'm totally
Rat
right.
raid.
Absolutely.
But just to point out one thing here, because these guys are using. So again, coming back to like how do we get towards this vision? We started with how do you build this is going to get wiped every week. How do we encourage people to build bases? Well, first of all, we created this blueprinting system. You bring the diagram of your base, you place it out, and you build it quickly, right? Mm-hmm. This is very fast. It doesn't take very long when you're with a few friends. You get a base put down, you build it up quickly. This is part of the logistics cycle of the deep desert.
And you can either bring the resources from Haga Basin and all the vehicles that you're bringing with you, or you can harvest there's quite a bit of resources in the shield wall. So you can set this up.
So this is what's happening here. We're building a forwarding base.
Exactly. I was going to say that this is obviously a forwarding base because it is kind of very boxy again compared to like the actual home bases that we saw earlier. Mm-hmm. Because this is all about efficiency, right?
Yes.
And like fitting your the storages and the all the machines that you need. Now my brain just stopped working. Fabricators. Thank you.
Yeah, and we made a change, or not a change. It's just the building costs are different in the deep desert, so it costs half as much to build everywhere.
Building
and you
is
get 100%
faster.
when you're breaking things down. Just because we know you're going to be redoing this every week.
Yep.
There's going to be some loss, right? So we're trying to make it easy and accessible in the ways that we can, while still keeping the threat there.
Yes.
And the intensity, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it, right? Like the deep desert is a little bit about that tension as well, that feeling of like, so we're building here, it's the PvE area. I expect people to build their primary like weekly base in the PvE area and then maybe set out some logistics bases so that they can do things like refining spice. And that's where it becomes an interesting kind of like, we'll see how people play out these scenarios in the actual deep desert in the game, but this is kind of the expected behavior. This is what we hope people will do. Mm-hmm. And we've tried to build all the mechanics into place so that people can do this, right? And that's been a large part of it.
You also see co-building here. There's actually several people working on this.
Yeah, everyone's working together, right?
Yeah,
and that's
which is super nice.
That's the guild focus as well. Like it is a multiplayer game. It's really important to make sure that people can play together and do things together. And I think the fun part in this game and this style of game is that it extends beyond like the traditional MMO experience of like we can fight things together, right? And we can role play together, but you're not building things together, you're not crafting vehicles together, right? Mm-hmm. We have those options, which is nice.
And it's just cool to see how quick you can use the blueprint system to get like a gigantic base, right? Yep. Even though it's utilitarian, right? But it does what it needs, and it's quite impressive.
Yep.
I know that people were also wondering that you won't be able to copy that your setup inside. So this is literally the blueprint is for the building itself. So everything inside.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You still have to put the placeables in.
So we're behind the shield wall. I think we've just left the base now.
Yeah, we're actually
and we're
just showing a little bit of the PvE area here.
So this is behind the shield wall, and then you come out into the deep desert. And this is like I think behind the shield wall there's also PvE elements here. Mm-hmm. This is the PvE space.
Yeah.
So there are things like shipwrecks that you can raid. Mm-hmm. There are like eco labs behind here. So there is a section of the deep desert. I know people are really worried about doing PvP. There's a whole section here. It's 24 kilometers long where you can actually go and like do the PvE part, and we're about to see. Well, this will take a few seconds.
We're actually
we're in the middle of the survey. So now we're surveying the land in this section, and we'll see the segment reveal itself. And this is like one of the PvE segments of the deep desert. And what you'll see here is that we've surveyed one square, and just to give some context, that's one of 81 squares within this map. So there are 81 of these squares. It's huge.
Yeah.
We're actually also seeing the sync chart that you mentioned earlier as well come into play.
So now I don't know whose name it is, but whichever player it is crafting they have surveyed. Now they're going to craft a sync chart. They have crafted a sync chart of the deep desert. It tells you in the information which sector of the deep desert, who created it, how long ago it was created, so you understand whether the information's out of date or in date. They're going to share that sync chart with their friends.
Yep.
And then their friends, hopefully, will be able to switch camera perspective and see their friend apply the sync chart, which saves them having to explore.
Yeah,
so this is that cartography loop.
You could go out with like a really quick ornithopter.
Look at this. That's the deep desert over there.
Oh, sure.
To the left.
But you can go out with like an exploration kit, right? That's really fast. That you can go around. You don't have much harvesting abilities, right? And then you scout the area, bring it back, and then your base can roll out with your transport ornithopters, your harvesters,
Exactly.
sand crawlers.
Depending what your plan is for the day. Which
people-
doesn't necessarily have to be PvP. There's actually a lot of other things,
Yeah,
that
exactly. I
might bring you to the
expect
deep
people
desert.
in guilds to be figuring things out and how they're going to work together to do these things. But there's roles here, right? Like again, we tried to really build this game with different roles for different people within guilds.
Exactly.
So the idea is, maybe I'm just the scout, and that's what I do because I hate, going into fights. But I go out, I bring back the information. Then people who like building bases are planning like what our logistics are going to be and what we're going to be doing this week in the deep desert. What do we need to harvest? What do we need for our crafting? Are there uniques that we're looking for? Are there specific uniques? I think one of the really important points about the deep desert is that like the unique schematics, the imperial permits, which maybe people saw, the purple ones, they're on a limited loot setup. So you don't get the same ones every week, and the layouts of the deep desert change. Here we see the trading system. The sync chart's been traded.
And those schematics you can only make a certain amount of times.
Yeah. And now we're going to consume the sync chart, and then we're going to open our map and see that the sector has been cleared, the same sector that was sync charted. So this is kind of cool. You can create copies of this and pass it off to your guild. You can create copies and sell them on the exchange to other players as well.
Yes, and while now they're actually building a transport ornithopter, we can actually quickly talk about the Curious Storm in combination with the map, because we actually have a visual asset here that shows how they can look like on the map.
We can talk about the rotation. So this is like, so let's see that we're going to see 3 weeks of Coriolis Storm changes to the map. So this is week 1. And then we move to, and you can see that there's like 1 eco lab, a shipwreck, and a cave there, right? And a small base, and some spice blows that have been marked. And then to the next week, the layout has changed. Where things are is different. There's a control point now in the bottom left. There's an eco lab in a different place, and a shipwreck that's been uncovered.
And there will be different loot and different
loot in all of them. And then we go 1 more week again. And now you can see that this is a bit larger. There's another control point. It's a different house control point now. Different spaces on the map. A couple of eco labs this time. 4 or 5 caves and the shipwreck. So you can sort of see how this changes and how this loot encourages exploration for people each week.
And that's 1 tile.
That's one section.
One of
81st.
One of 81.
Yeah.
But I will say this: it's a very big desert with a lot of space.
Yes.
So there's not all the tiles are that populated each week. So people aren't like, there's not 15 eco labs in every square, right?
No.
Like it's a
more
big
sparse.
barren place. And this is also like important because if we want people to fight over things, we actually need to draw them to the same places to fight over specific things in PvP.
Yes. So
All
for
right.
the ones who actually do want the PvP, they have a place to go where they know there's probably other players there as well.
Okay, so now we have a transport ornithopter. This is the largest flying vehicle that you can craft in the game. And this may be my favorite game mechanic because the transport
I agree.
ornithopter can pick things up. And I love it because it can pick up almost anything that is a vehicle, right, in the game. So
one of the things you'll see in the mid game is like the buggy is really hard to get to places, right? Even though it mines so much more than you can ever possibly mine yourself. But it's a pain, right, to get up on the shield wall or to get it out here.
So a good tactic with the buggy though is to use it as storage and use the transport ornithopter to pick it up and carry it. Are we going to show an example of carrying? I guess we are.
Yes, we are,
cool.
because what we're actually preparing for here is a spice harvesting mission.
So the team's going out to do some spice harvesting. Cool.
So we're actually gonna pick up a harvester.
So now we're coming out into what I call the real deep desert, right? This is actually what you think of when you think of Arrakis from the movies, right? So we just got the nice tutorial pop up talking about the deep desert.
Yes.
So this is the Arrakis that we know from the films. So Haga Basin is like and it's taking a lot of the information that we have from the books and about like the different biomes and things and making it into a truly sort of interesting PvE experience. But this is the true deep desert of Arrakis. This is the place where people are scared to go. This is where the Fremen live. We're passing outside the shield wall now. This is where the War of Assassins and the PvP is allowed to happen.
Spice blow.
And you can see a spice blow in the distance, which draws people from miles around to go there, right? And I do want to say this section here, if you turn the camera right and left, you can see that we have the shield wall. It goes, this is 24 kilometers long, and you can't see people all the way along. So people who are like nervous about going into the deep desert because they're worried about, the PvP is, I think there's like an element from my end, a designed moment that we've talked about on this project quite often is like, you come to the edge of this vast ocean and you dip your toe in the water and you're a little bit scared of sharks, but you see something in the distance and you think, I can make it. I can get there and I can get back. And the first time it's scary. And you feel that tension. And the second time and the third time. But you feel that tension, but you actually start doing it, right? And I get that people worry about toxic behaviors and ganking and so forth, but we tried to build a space where you can get away from people as well.
Correct, yeah. So I think that's really important to talk about is in Dune, you were given the tools to get away, right? Like if overwhelming amounts of people come after you, maybe you can't quite get away, but that's generally not going to happen. So a lot of it is more about, PvP is about controlling a point and like having to give up that point if you don't feel like fighting
over things instead of kicking down sandcastles.
Exactly.
Correct. So on the Landsrad here, this is kind of interesting, right? So you can see the Landsrad's in the state of like, if we claim this as the Atreides, we're going to win what we call a Sisselrad. And a Sisselrad means that we're going to get the voting power for the week. So a Sisselrad is when we can complete a row. So normally, if you were Harkonnen and Atreides in this situation, you'd both be fighting over this particular control point because you really don't want the other one to win for the week. But normally, like it's kind of, you're always blocking each other and causing like the other team to have to, go back and focus on filling out a row or trying to fill out as many squares as possible. So we're trying to take the
House Haggle?
House Haggle owns this control point in the deep desert. We're in the deep desert as Atreides taking over this control point on their behalf. And you can see it's just this control point. It's a place that you have to defend in the deep desert. It'll draw other people and it will earn you points over time. It's a classic control point in the deep desert. One other thing, just if you stop for a second here, one other thing I just wanted to point out, one of the feedbacks we had in beta was about team markers. You can see our new team marker system in the game here. It's deliberately only for the 4-person groups. I will not allow this to be in the game for guilds because I want, like, especially I know people talk about Zergs. I think when Zerg guilds and there's 40 people attacking each other on the screen, if everybody can see who's in their guild, it's very easy to target the people that you're trying to Zerg. But if it's just the group, then it's much more difficult for Zergs to actually not do friendly fire. Yeah. And there is full friendly fire on guilds.
I mean, they can do it if they work for it, right? They can make sure everyone has the same swatches and the same armor. So there is ways to do it, but they have to work.
Figure out what you're dressed like and infiltrate.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
we didn't want to take
no
away
artificial.
Yeah, it's been one of my. Let's say I will say this is one of those things where I have had to fight with a lot of developers on this project about this. There's a crashed ship down there, by the way. It's kind of cool that you could also go loot that. But it's like giving too much information for free to players actually limits our ability for people to have politics and intrigue. Yeah. Because if I can see your name over your head, I know who you are, right? But if I don't know who that is, and you dress in my clothing and you walk into my base and you follow me around, it's like I might just think that you're my friend from the guild, when in fact you're just trying to infiltrate. And we want to allow that possibility because that is Dune. At its core, that is how things work. There are plans within plans, there are groups within groups.
I remember that from early on, where your kind of law was information has to be earned.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was a very early thing.
Can I just point out that we just crossed a server border?
Yeah.
Our game has server meshing tech in the deep desert, and it's been a very painful technical thing to get working.
Yes.
But we just crossed a server border. You probably might not have even noticed any sort of hitching or anything because it's very seamless. And again, shout out to our technical team who've been working their butts off to get this in good shape. But we just crossed a server border from one server to another, and it's basically not visible, which is great.
Yeah, what we call authority transfer.
Authority transfer between servers, yeah. So now we're picking up a random sandcrawler and bringing it out to the spice harvesting field. So I mean, I love that. I love that mechanic. I think it's fantastic fun in the game, just picking things up.
The transport ornithopter is quite slow.
Yeah, it's very slow.
So it is dangerous to go out just in the transport ornithopter.
And you can of course sit in the harvester
Yes.
while being
Yeah, you can,
transported,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is really
So
fun too.
You can also,
Yes.
I think the transport also has like 5 seats as well. So
Yes,
there's,
yeah.
you can bring a whole little group with you.
Or have them standing on
kidnap
top.
other enemy harvesters as well, which is also super fun to do.
But we should talk about spice, because
Yes.
that's really ties
Yeah.
the entire end game together, right? So
Yeah.
all the tier, the tier 6 or the last like set of resources, right? Everything requires spice to craft it. So your end game gear, your end game tools,
Yep.
end game vehicles.
Everything in game requires spice for crafting, essentially. And also, we mentioned the Landsrad. The Landsrad has always the center square of the Landsrad requires spice to win. It's important. The Sandcrawler is like, it's not the full harvesters that you've seen in the films. Those are owned by the big houses. But as you can see here, this is like a little like raid event. We just placed a thumper on the sand. We have a guy on a bike. He's
Exactly.
riding around dropping thumpers.
You should also hear it actually on
Yeah.
stream now. You hear
Yeah.
The thumpers are really important because sandworms roam the deep desert. They will be coming, and you need to be placing out thumpers to distract them away from that sandcrawler while it's harvesting spice. And you want to keep it on the spice as long as possible, just like in the book.
Yeah.
You want to stay on the spice, earn as much profit as you possibly can. You can even see the trail that the sandcrawler is leaving in the spice as it sucks up spice into its little vacuum pack.
Yeah, so the sandworm stops being, it not stops, but it's less of a threat as you're going throughout Hauga Basin into the
Yes.
mid game. But then at the end game, right, there's sandworms all over the place, and it becomes a threat again, especially when you're trying to get spice from the sands.
So yeah, so you saw the sandworm just took that thumper. Hopefully our intrepid thumper placers have put out more of them.
They're totally well organized. They have like several people placing out thumpers.
Yeah.
They have like the scouts here in the air that we see as well, which is really cool to see.
Looking for worms.
Plus our transport to be ready for any kind
Yeah,
of danger that
and-
might occur.
And so as soon as the sandcrawler, like the person driving the sandcrawler knows that they're the target of the sandworm, they need to radio in and be like, get me off the sand, so that the transport ornithopter will pick them up. But at the moment, I think we're using the thumpers effectively as a team. And this is a part of it, right? Like this is why the deep desert is very Dune. I don't think you have this experience in any other game. And the idea was to create this. So if you are here with your guild, there's something to do and it's fun and it's interesting, but then other players might show up as well. And that's where it becomes another step, right?
So you're saying it's not just reskin Conan Exiles? Is that what you're saying, Joel?
We could talk about what the word reskin means. We could talk about that some of the best games in the world are reskins of other games.
So you see here though that there is a lot of sandworms that are popping up here constantly,
Yes.
which is both fun to see but also terrifying.
There is
Yes.
a limit to how much they
Yes.
will eat thumpers, right?
Yes.
They do eventually get annoyed.
Eventually
There's
they
like,
have enough.
I'm not that dumb,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
They'll eat thumpers for a while.
I see what you're doing here.
They have a diverse palate.
Yes. But yeah, this is like
You also see nicely the scouts around to
Yeah.
see like also potentially looking out for sandstorms
Yeah,
coming in. Of
sandstorms,
course,
yes.
Yeah.
they're kind of
Worm sign.
devastating in this particular worm signs. Enemies coming in as well.
Enemies coming in.
potentially.
Yeah. So yeah, it's this is kind of the experience of like harvesting spice in the deep desert from a large spice blow. And there are smaller spice blows like that you can come to with a smaller guild.
We also have them in Hauga Basin, of course.
Yes.
Just way
There's
smaller than
just a
this one.
couple ones in Hauga. Yeah, it's very limited because we wanted spice to be a rare resource that you need to go out here into the deep desert to get.
And talking about like concentration of people, like the spice flow you can see from really far away,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
20 plus kilometers
Yes.
away. So you do need to bring some friends to be looking out for other people coming in.
Yep.
There's another thumper down there. So I know we've seen some comments from people that are like, well, you have to go into the deep desert to get like the highest type of gear and such. What
That
do
is
we?
not true. We have the exchange. We just showed that before, right? So you can be somebody that is making something that a person on the exchange would want, right? That goes into the deep desert to get spice or to get, like some schematics. They can go to Arakeen or Hargo Village, post that, and then you can trade it on the exchange. Or you can meet up in person and trade with
Picking
the
up the
PvP.
crawler.
I think there
Oh.
might have been some we can't hear it though, but there might have been some rumblings and some indication that
Yeah. We I think that they got worm sign
big
and they need to
threats.
move.
is
Yeah, we
potentially
do have a
coming.
known bug in the game where the spice color disappears from the sand.
It's still there. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's happening.
Well,
Oh,
There he is.
That's why they,
and there's the
we can
grandfather
actually
worm.
hear that, yeah.
that's Shia
It's
Halou.
great seeing the little sandworm.
Yeah, the
right
little
by the
tiny
big
one on
one.
the side. You can see the scale.
Little baby, like, getting into the action there.
This is the ring mouth worm.
That's the ring mouth, yeah.
And that's gonna swallow everything
That
that's
one's
in the
big, yeah,
middle.
yeah.
They're like just everything there is lost.
It
and it's
takes
just
a
like
lot. But these guys managed to succeed, and they can take their haul out of the deep desert today with them.
very well prepared.
Yeah.
They were well prepared.
Very well prepared. So as our crew here is now going back to, actually maybe we can explore a little bit, because we do actually have Imperial testing stations here as well. And I think we're actually somewhat close to one, if I remember correctly, so we can maybe show that from above as well. Again, to just bring it in that there is a lot of content in the deep desert that is not just like flat out PvP, right? So we really
Yeah.
want to
Correct. And this is our high-end PvE encounters happen in the deep desert. So the eco labs or ecological testing stations,
Yeah. Oh,
they're
yeah.
actually tuned
Apologies.
for 4 players. Yeah. So it's the main PvE challenge would be out here, where you're going to get those unique schematics that we were talking about earlier. But you need to scout, you need to find them, and then you need to perhaps fight over them.
And work as a team. I think these are tuned towards minimum 4 people.
Yeah.
Right,
We actually showed one in our combat stream.
Yeah, the
second part,
2 years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
They're like kind of wave-based, kind of very different approach than the Imperial testing stations that we have in Haga Basin.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah,
different
that's-
every week.
It's the entrance
Yes.
to the quality station. And you know, like as the game continues, as we go through live and we continue to update and expand, there'll be more things that show up on the map, for example, Fremen Seaches and things like that, that people would expect to explore. So things will be
Exactly.
uncovered. And as I mentioned, like the layouts for the deep desert, they're handcrafted. We have a cool system where we like build the layouts by hand and generate the spaces between them with the sand. So it's kind of like we fill in the gaps with the sand. But like we are building new layouts for this all the time, right? And then over time we'll incorporate more and more elements. So there'll be always something to do. That's the pillar of the game, infinite exploration, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the goals, is to create a space that's always explorable. And something else I'd like to say that I think is like important is we will add, like we have the DLCs and things coming for the game. We'll be adding things in the DLCs, but the deep desert will always remain something that we consider to be at the zenith of the power curve in the game. So we'll keep adding to the deep desert. So let's say that we have tier 5 items in the game and we go to tier 7, then the deep desert will start to have tier 7 equipment and items and things in it as well. We will always try to keep it on par with anything else we add in terms of power, because the deep desert really is that continually explorable
The
space.
central point
Yeah.
that keeps all of the things
Yeah, and
together.
we'll continue to add like stuff, and there will be like in DLCs there'll be places where people can get access to gear that is currently in the deep desert, right? When we do that, we'll also increase the deep desert and make sure that there's more things. So that's kind of the long-term goal, is to continue updating the game and continue adding this stuff.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. To also ensure players about that. So while we actually have our team, or actually the spice harvesters, go back to on the way to the quartermaster to deploy, or like to kind of
Harvest the spice. Yeah.
give him the spice, basically. Yeah, give him the spice for the launcher thing.
Refine.
We do have an additional asset. We have actually a video from a stress test that we did with the beta last
Oh, dear.
week on Friday, where we see a lot of things happening.
Shout out to the beta players.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, beta players. Fantastic work on that side as well. So here, that's actually a glimpse at the stress test that we did. That's also deep desert. Lots of people together in the deep desert, lots of ornithopters, and it's just really
All
cool
in
to
line
have like
to
that,
get their ornithopters.
to like
Yeah, we were
see
spawning.
that as well.
They were spawning thopters like crazy. Someone's flamethrowing, throwing bombs. Players never behave when you put them in the same space.
If I remember, that's actually Camille with the flamethrower.
We were.
No,
we
not Camille. Sorry, Ignacy. I mean,
The-
that was Ignacy.
The
actually.
context
like
of the
a
stress
total-
test, by the way, was like we were testing people crossing the server boundaries with our mesh servers
I
and
love that
fighting
little
on them.
ornithopter
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's like,
Yeah.
this is sorry,
and,
go ahead.
and fighting along the server boundaries just to see how the performance was. So you'll see people firing rockets, and yeah, it was a cool test. I think we got a lot of very useful data out of this.
Yep.
And seeing how people were fighting together.
Also, shout out to our automation team because they every build, right? We have the deep desert, and they have basically they deploy our automation system called Legion, and it goes and it tests all of these things, right? So it's got hundreds of ornithopters going back and forth between all the
all the
zone
boundaries. Yep, there's a lot of testing that goes into a project like this. It's insane.
Yes.
And the more sandboxy you get, the more things can break, and that's kind of what makes it
the more
interesting.
freedom we also give to players, the more things can break.
Exactly.
And like, I think I said that to you earlier as well, that like, story-driven games that are linear and you follow one story are one thing. We do have that aspect in the game as well, but I think what we at Funcom really love to do is we love to create worlds where players can write their own stories and can tell their own stories, right?
Yes.
I think that's such a different approach to game
it's
development.
One of the ways we describe Arrakis is a crisis generator, right? So
One of the
it
four.
is spawning stories, and that's why like these tense locations like the deep desert are really important because it does spawn these memorable moments that you remember that you go experience with your friends or your guild. You make friends, you make enemies, and that's really important to like fully experience the politics and intrigue of Dune.
100%.
The power of multiplayer, right?
Exactly.
Yes, like I remember, like we had a lot of really cool. Before we go back to actually delivering the spice, we had actually a lot of really cool moments from streamers and players and YouTube content creators about the beta weekend or from the beta weekend. And I remember one moment, I call it the GTA moment, where one of the streamers, I think he was harvesting something or something.
Yeah.
Oh no, he was downed.
He was downed by an enemy.
He was downed but not out. And then the other one
yes.
comes in and just drives over the enemy that was like targeting him, and he couldn't stop laughing. It's like these little moments that make, that create those stories that are so fun to share as well and are unique to you then. And it's like, and that is, I think, where for me, that satisfaction of really creating those worlds comes.
Yeah, I think is one of the things, like we get a bit of I mean it's fine, like we get feedback like, oh, jank, right? Like being able to stand on top of an ornithopter is janky. It is, but when they asked me if we should remove that, I said no. Surfing on an ornithopter is actually
very cool.
Why isn't that cool? Like why isn't that something we want? So like sometimes we make those choices as well. Like it's like this might look a little weird sometimes. But you know what? It's way more fun when you can do it.
Yes,
it's way more fun when you can do it.
The meta on beta might have been, surfing on ornithopters, shooting people with assault rifles.
A little bit of that might be fixed now. Yeah. We fixed some of the assault rifle issues.
All right, so let's go back into delivering the spice now. Oh, actually, no. Let's talk a little more. I actually wanted to ask you both a question. You actually have answered that recently in an interview, but that's not the reason I'm asking, because I plan to do it anyway. It's like, what is each of you's favorite thing in the game? I mean, you mentioned a few things that we saw, like the transport ornithopter and stuff, but I'm pretty sure there's other things that you're particularly proud of.
So, survival games for me, one of the best things they do is they make the world more interactable than other genres, right? So I think the team has done a great job of like using the harvesting system. Not only does the cut array like cut up the resources and get it, but you come across these like wrecked ornithopters, and every time I come across one and I'm cutting off the wings and getting the resources from it, it just feels great, right? Because it makes the game grounded. So I would say that whole entire system there is really unique with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think I'm thinking about the one that I mentioned in the interview as well, probably, but like the Dew Reaper. And the way that you, because I like, look, I made Conan we made Conan, and Conan's a bit more stock standard in the survival sense, right? You're chopping down trees and you're harvesting rocks. And when it came to Dune, we had the design principle of like, make your designs fit Dune, do not make Dune fit your designs. And it was like, what is harvesting water look like in Dune? And there's a line in the book where Duke Leto is looking out a window and the sun's rising, and there's all these people out in the fields harvesting dew off the flowers, and you're like, that's how precious water is on this planet, and that's a moment that our game needs to have. And so it isn't just like the confluence. It's like it's cool, this action of like sweeping the dew off the top of plants using this little Holtzman field that drains the water up into, and like, not only did the animation team and the effects team nail that, and the audio team got all of that works, but it's also like the back end. the time of day, checking when the dew harvest time is optimal, feeling like, and it's so satisfying to be out there like 10 minutes before the sun comes up and you're filling just liter johns full of water because you understood the game system and you understood the timing. All of those things come together to create an experience that I think for me it's just like, you can't have this experience in any game except Dune. And to me that's the most precious thing, right? Like I feel like it's so good when all those things come together. Like as a developer, that's just the most rewarding stuff, right? And it feels good. And I don't really care if anyone else likes it because I love it so much. No, because I think it really nails it, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't speak more highly of how cool that works, right?
Totally
And
get it,
shout out to the team who worked on it and everybody who did their part.
100%. No,
Because
I get that.
Because games are made by teams, right? That's the other thing.
Spice.
Yes, absolutely. So we actually made it now to the quartermaster, and we are
So we're going to deliver
delivered a
spice.
Yes.
Try to win the Landsrad. Okay, so these
Took a while
guys,
to get back.
ask you, so you, because you're sort of, you're a minor house or a minor house under the umbrella of the Atreides, you deliver Landsrad bribes to the quartermasters of the Atreides, and they make sure they get where they're supposed to go. So now we're delivering for House Alexan, we're delivering spice, and the House Alexan are a part of the manufacturing unit, which is where they, and so we're delivering 500 spice melange, and then they're going to make sure that it reaches them, and then that will, in a moment, change the Landsrad. So you can see how you have an impact now. So Landsrad is there under the social tab. This board refreshes every so often, so it's been a few seconds since the last refresh. Now we should be able to see our borders refreshed with a certain amount of spice. Oh, we didn't go to Alexan. You're on the wrong one. You need to go to Alexan. It's in the middle.
The middle.
Yes, and then we can see that we've delivered some spice and the goal amount has gone up. So that you can see that we've increased our goal amount with House Alexan there.
So we've worked towards
Yes.
gaining
So we haven't
favor.
worked like once we hit 70,000 points, and we can do any of these activities to earn points, like the control point. We can
claim those.
we can
those
deliver
fields.
spice melange. But once we've done enough to earn that center square, then it'll flip to be Atreides and say that we've claimed it for the week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
Great.
Nice.
So that was a little bit of a glimpse of what mid and end game can look like. Obviously, that totally depends on what you like to play and how you like to play. There's quite a lot of options. We showed you a few of them, an approach of what can be done.
we're also jamming like dozens of hours of gameplay into like a very quick presentation.
Yes, 100%. Like this is very like preparation is everything, which is of course true for the game specifically as well. But before we dive into the Q&A, we are gonna take a quick look at the Mentats.
So then, you're not quite dead.
Great plot.
Developed out of the need to replace thinking machines, the Mentats, trained on the principles of philosopher Gilbertus Albans, became one of the most important people in the Imperium. Able to calculate immense amounts of data and devise complex strategies, they are the most advanced tacticians on the battlefield. Combined with advanced assassination and combat technology, you will be able to think many steps ahead of your enemies. With a significantly higher cognition, as a Mentat, you can calculate trajectories and weapon handling to find weak points in an opponent's defense, or even guide the calculations of an external sentinel turret to assist you with extra firepower. Focusing on strategic control over raw strength, a Mentat is an expert in assassination technology, using poison capsules to trap enemies in a cloud of death. Or when out of sight, send in a hunter-seeker before the enemy has even noticed your presence. For a tactical advantage, the Mentats have devised further development of Imperial technology, such as the shield wall for extra protection. And to fool simple-minded enemies, a projection of yourself will confuse and scatter their focus.
Throughout the dunes of Arrakis, any school can be trained and improved by masters, increasing your mental capacity and further advancing your tactical technology will let you hold the strategic advantage in any situation. But to reach the highest tactical operation, adopting other schools of thought will increase your mental complexity, opening up further possibilities. Focus your mind and calculate each step forward to find the optimal probability for your survival on Arrakis.
All right, and we are back for our Q&A. So our wizards behind the screens and behind the cameras are gonna throw up questions that have been collected. They're ready now. I was just told, fantastic.
Before anybody asks any questions, though, I just want to make a reveal of my own.
Nice.
Special toe shoes today for everybody's.
They look really cool though.
They are cool.
But
No.
it also looks a bit like Hobbit feet, to be fair. Like at least close up, Chad. So it's good you have a little bit of a. It's good you don't have
Not
close
for all the money in the world.
From what I understand, they're very healthy though. They're way better for you than actual normal shoes. So
Yep.
That's what they say.
that's what they say.
I started wearing them 10 years ago and I'm still
Still
fat,
not
so I don't know. Maybe
Super
they're,
healthy.
Maybe they're not working out.
Well, your feet are very healthy.
My
Let's go
feet
there.
are massively
Yeah,
healthy.
super
Sorry,
healthy.
all right. Enough
All right.
distraction. I apologize.
No, you don't
Just
have to.
the toe reveal was
You
important
don't have
to me.
to. We wouldn't want you any other way, Joel. All right. Rui's probably going to kill me now.
Yeah.
All right.
We want him every other way.
Every other way. No. It's all good. Like it's also you guys make a really nice, you complement each other really well.
I've got
Scott is-
pants. He doesn't have pants.
Exactly. He has toe shoes. You actually wear socks as well. So it's just like, it's a whole balance thing. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
all
Nice.
right. All right. While we still wait on the questions, they're still collecting some of them.
Nobody has
give
any
them a little
questions.
bit of maybe no one has
We've
questions.
answered
Perfect.
every possible question
I
people
wish,
could have is
right,
fully
I
answered.
wish. Like that's kind of the both the blessings and the blessing and the challenge of Dune Awakening. I think is just it has so many aspects of different games. That we really tried to put together and
Were you
have
the-
people try and understand.
Were you
so.
there when I was like presenting to the press about the game and I was calling Funcom morons for taking
Yes, of course I was
Yes,
there.
yeah.
I was
was fun.
expecting headlines.
I-
we
we
didn't
take
get
a
a
lot of
single
risks.
headlines.
Yes.
We didn't get a single headlines like that.
Yeah.
Funcoms are morons.
Well,
Chief Creative Director says.
Well, we
It's
are like we keep trying to, like it's one of the things that I love about working here. Is like they let me do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They let me try and do weird shit. Like
mean-
it's like you could work somewhere where you're doing the same game every year. Speaking of reskins, like and you're making the exact same thing and you're within this box and it's like and like I do like that we're allowed to push beyond those things,
I
right? And
agree.
try harder to do something different. And yeah, it comes with a little bit of jank, but man, I don't know. I feel like it's like the
I agree though. I think one thing you can't say about us is that we like it easy.
no, exactly.
like-
We're morons. We make it hard for ourselves every time.
Yeah.
It's what we were talking about at the beginning, right? We make unique games, right? We take risks, and sometimes it means that we make divisive decisions. But I think that's what was great about the beta, right? It's like people got to see what the true experience was. Oh, and here is
Exactly. So we're ready actually for the questions. So is that Lopil 125? Is the exchange global or per server?
It is per world. So the world is what we call a container of all the Haga Basin that you will play and interact with, right? So there are hundreds of worlds. So it is not global.
Yeah, it is one deep desert per world,
Yeah.
2 social hubs per world, and then many Haga basins per world, and that is what we call a world. And yeah, as Scott says, at launch there are hundreds of worlds to choose from, right? And within each world, there's many Haga basins to choose from.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And Speak asks, are the overland map dungeons instanced per player? Can you do them as a group or are they open like the social hubs?
The answer is that they are not instance for a group. They are per player, and they are not open like the social hubs.
They are instanced, though.
Yes, they are
to a
instanced.
limit.
To a limit.
So several people in the same world can be doing the same, like the
single.
water fat mansion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are kind of our only instant content in that way,
Yes.
in that sense.
Yep. Correct.
Charlie Foxtrot TV asks, how do the different circuits work?
Oh, they basically isolate resources so that they can only be used if they're on that circuit. And then you can set a circuit for it's a little bit hard in the UI, but you can set like a machine's input and output circuit
Yes.
that way. And so that's kind of the extent with it.
Like draw from this storage, deliver to this storage when you're finished, right? And that's
Basically,
how
Or this group of
Yeah,
connected
and,
items.
yeah, exactly. And you can set a certain number of storages per circuit, and so yes, that's basically it.
Kriegsdrachen asks, how will they ensure balance between Harkonnen and Atreides?
There are systems. I think I talked about this in that other.
You
when I got
you
that
just
question.
mentioned as well, it's
I
like
hedged it
we
last time.
have, but
We
you
have
didn't
some
want to
systems,
spoil
but I'm
it,
not going
which
to
we
talk
should
too much
exactly,
about.
exactly.
And then when we introduce a third faction, which we are planning to, it will also have a role in that balance. But that's basically what I can say right now. But ensure is very hard. Like it's very hard to be 100% certain because, when you give players choice, they choose. And so you can't guarantee that it's going to be 100%, not 100% people on Atreides on a world. But I think we have pretty good systems in place to make sure that at least feels like it balances itself out pretty well.
Yes, and the deep desert is not Atreides versus Harkonnen.
Yes.
It is every
Yes.
person for themselves, right? So even if Harkonnen are kind of dominating a server or they're 60-40, they're going to be fighting themselves
Yes.
in the deep desert as well.
And that's actually something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Landsrad. Like the Landsrad, you can see the different within the
top guilds.
factions who the top guilds are and who contributed the most. Because a part of the Dune thing is that it isn't that everybody in Atreides is a monolith. It's actually like people want the Duke's attention, so they want to be further up. And the same with the Harkonnen, right? Like I want the Baron to witness me, so I'm trying to get to the top of the list of guilds. So there should be inter-guild competition even within the factions. So they overall are working towards the common goal of the Landsrad, but they're trying to beat each other to be the best in the Landsrad. So they have the most voting power, they get the rewards, etc.
Yeah, especially also because one Atreides guild might be focused on PvP, the other one might be super opposed to PvP.
Yep.
So they definitely don't want the PvP guild to we want full PvP. So
Yes.
they will, work against them and
Yes.
we want to be top because we want to have more say in which decree we're actually going to have next week.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
a crafting guild's going to want the crafting decrees.
Exactly,
And
yes.
they're not going to want the PvP full loot decree, right? So
Exactly,
there's going to be
yes.
that kind of competition even within the factions.
Yes, exactly.
So, yep, good question.
Cypher asks, can our bases get raided?
So not in Haga Basin. They will be safe in Haga Basin. In the deep deserts, it's a bit different.
Yeah, in the PvE section of the Deep Desert, no.
Yeah.
But in the PvP section of the Deep Desert, there is a mechanism by which bases have a vulnerability window where they can be raided. It is a very short vulnerability window. And again, I would point to the lore of the Dune universe. So I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't read the books and doesn't know a way in which shields can go down for a brief period of time. But it is worth looking into because then you'll understand exactly how the mechanics can work. And I know I'm being needlessly cryptic, but I'm sure there's people spamming in the chat about it already.
Let them figure it out. Altman Alchemist, if I don't take the mission to talk with House Atreides or Harkonnen, will I be content locked as far as progressing, sorry,
No, that's
the
fine.
main story and the ability to craft?
No.
Yeah, no. The story, while it involves House Atreides and the Harkonnen, it is not about that. It's about you and your role on Dune.
It's your quest to find the Fremen and wake the
Exactly.
sleeper, right?
Yeah.
So the main story follows that. What we were talking about and what we were showing earlier with the different faction unlocks, like in terms of the visuals and those things, you're locked out of if you don't want to join a faction.
But those
You
are
can't get,
pure vanity.
but they're pure vanity, right?
No mechanics.
But yeah, you can't. But one thing you cannot join the Landsrad unless you have aligned yourself with a faction. Your guild must be aligned with a faction to participate in the Landsrad. That is the one hard requirement that I think faction alignment has in the game. That's it. Otherwise, yeah, you can do all the content without joining Atreides or Harkonnen.
I also think when it comes to progressing, in the beta, during the beta weekend, you were still very much in the tutorialization part of the game,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that some players were like, "Whoa, this is very linear" and things. But the thing is, things open up quite more once you're past that tutorialization section as well. So you won't be actually locked progressing when it comes to crafting or where you spend your points.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
in the
Intel
opening
points specifically.
in the opening of the game, after character creation, you actually get a choice as to whether you want to play with an unlocked tech tree or a locked tech tree. The reason we put that there is so that people who are advanced survival players or people who've played Dune before can just go, okay, I want the unlocked tech tree, I know what I'm doing. But I recommend, and we recommend, that the locked tech tree is for people who are playing the game for the first time, and really, because there are so many, we've been talking about it a lot today, there are so many mechanics that are just kind of Dune mechanics that we want people to learn, and we need to teach them. And it's going to be hard for you to know what to do. Like, you don't know about dew reaping and times of day when you should be out harvesting dew unless you follow the tutorials that we put in place for that, right? So it's just that.
Or that you need to go to shipwrecks to craft better weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Koopa is asking, is there a level cap
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe we're at 200
Yeah.
currently?
currently.
But you can respec.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's, I believe it's on a 48-hour
Mm-hmm.
cycle. So even if you cap out and you play something and you decide you don't like it, you can switch to something else.
And there's a point where you run out of, you stop getting unlock points for your tech tree, intel points. And then we have a mechanic in the game for you to go around and unlock more intel points by going to bases in the world, like enemy bases and outposts. So there's a level cap that puts a stop to some of those progression things, and then the next step from there is for you to go and explore more and enjoy the game more.
Because we do want you to make some choices, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Also, there's different level and skill point caps, right? Because you have a character level, you have skill points, and you have intel points. So
Yes.
there's 3 different
Yes.
caps that you
Yeah,
particularly
exactly.
hit. K69N is asking, is it possible to lose all your gear in PvP?
So not in PvP in the base level. In the deep desert, you lose resources that you're carrying, Solari and Spice, and you take durability damage to some of your gear. Right, that's what happens every time you die, PvE or PvP. But if there's a specific decree from the Landsrad which enables full loot PvP in the deep desert for 1 week, then that's the only time in the game where you can lose all your gear in PvP. That's it.
Or if you're fighting in the sand and a sandworm comes and eats you.
Yeah, sure.
If you
I
try
guess
to
you
fight
can
the
lose all your gear in
sandworm,
PvP, but
yeah.
we count is the sandworm PvP really?
You know.
It's more like PvE, but yes, 100%.
Wolfie1974, are we going to be able to get blueprints that devs made of their bases?
Oh, the Tor Eagle presents.
Exactly, this is Tor Eagle presents. That's actually very
That's a
cool. I
great
love
idea.
that idea. That's actually a
Maybe
very cool
we can
idea.
fill up some vendors
Yeah.
post-launch with some of our
I was just,
pre-mades. Maybe.
yes,
We'll
I
see.
was just about to say I don't think players should actually pay for them per se, but we should, or maybe they need to. I don't know.
You don't want copies of my
I mean,
bases.
you shouldn't know. No, actually, let me rephrase that. We shouldn't have a dev sell those items in game, but we can sell it via
Oh,
NPC.
sure, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I meant, right?
Maybe
Like,
we can put a vendor or something
that'd
like
be
that.
cool. Yeah, like you
Yeah,
mentioned.
maybe a vendor in the world can sell some blueprints.
You see, like Tor Eagle bases
Toregel's the
everywhere.
guy. Toregel's the builder among us. Mine would just be no one
Mine
wants,
are boxes.
No one wants to see
Yeah.
I'm the guy who tests T2P
New dog houses.
TTP every time.
Yes.
So
I'm sure we're gonna have players who make fantastic buildings. Okay, Quintinovich is asking, will GeForce now be in Dune Awakening?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
I have no idea.
discussions going on.
There's
at least.
discussions. I can't remember what the last is, but people are looking at it. Yeah.
I don't have Slack open, otherwise you could check.
GeForce
Someone
Now
was
is
just,
the
hammering
streaming
messages
service,
to
right?
me
Yeah.
online.
So
It's like,
the question I guess would be, will Dune Awakening be on GeForce Now for
yes,
streaming?
yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
Yep.
interpreted.
I don't
as
know
well.
the answer. I'm sorry, but Scott.
Yeah, I don't think I have an official answer, but I believe so. But yeah.
Helping Hans, how do you balance the council wins? If one side gets unique weapons, won't that side have a better chance to win the next vote down the line?
Not necessarily, because the tasks for the Landsrad are pulled from, so there's 25 tasks per week, and there's a pool of 400 tasks that can potentially show up. So you, first of all, don't necessarily know what's going to be there. Unique weapons doesn't actually influence everything. Some of the tasks are kill tasks. You don't know which tasks are going to be revealed first. You also have to bribe Landsrad envoys with spice to reveal tasks. And if your faction does it before the other faction, you'll see, okay, we need to do this. So you might just get ahead because you had more spice or whatever. It's not going to come down to unique weapons. Absolutely not. That's not going to be the thing that means that one side gets a sudden landslide kind of advantage. So I think that's the best way to answer that, I think, from my perspective.
I think that's a great answer too, and I think it just goes again into people are a little bit too afraid that everything is about PvP and fighting endgame, and that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
And hopefully we explained that a little bit today as well for people to feel a bit more relaxed about that, or disappointed, depending. Dr. Evil Eye, is there any content or materials that are hidden behind PvP, meaning that the only way to obtain that item gear material is to risk losing to large guilds?
I wouldn't say hidden, but like you can. The Deep Desert, which we just explained, is a place where tier 6 gear is, like items and materials for crafting those things. You need to go there to get those things. You can buy them off the exchange. You can trade for them with other people, but yes, you have to go to that place in order to get those things. And there is a risk of people attacking you when you're in that place. We tried to explain that this is a very large place. It's not going to be possible for a guild to cover the entire space. It's just not going to be possible.
Yeah. I think guild limit's 32.
The guild limit is 32 people.
Yeah. So one per kilometer, maybe, if they stretch across.
Yeah, they'd have to stretch all the way across. And even then, I think there's all kinds of tactics and ways to draw them off. And I don't think it's going to be a problem.
There are potentially hundreds and hundreds of people that can be in the deep desert, right?
Yes.
So one guild would be outnumbered by 100 people.
Again, if you want to rat, you can rat.
Yeah.
Like there's options, right?
And also, like the tier 6 gear isn't required for the story or for anything that's having to do with like a basin, right? It's sort of just the deep desert loop.
But we can't tell people that they can't get to the top number go up because they really people always want that. So it's
there are other ways to get it.
Even though it's not required, you I know people are going to want it.
I feel like it makes sense though, because those people who really care about the highest level tier are probably the PvPers, and they want to be in the deep desert in the first place. So I feel like it's kind of a natural balance there too.
Hopefully we also have I think there's this weird. I speak to a lot of people in our closed beta and our Discord, right? And I see that like there's people who kind of assume that everybody who is a guild in PvP is going to be this toxic, sweaty kind of. And I think it's going to be the opposite. I think we're going to have the good guy guilds who are out there actually protecting people and like helping people out. I've seen it in the beta already. People, I got lost in the desert, help, and people would come help them, give them rides home, like give them more gear. I've seen people in the beta like just give other people an ornithopter when they lost one because of a bug that was in the game from our end. They're like, "Oh, do you want an ornithopter? I have a spare one." Right? It's great to see, and I think that people worry too much about toxicity. Hopefully, we'll keep track of it, of course, but it should be fine.
And you have one player for the entire world, right?
Yeah.
So, and you are your name, right? So you will have some sort of reputation.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well.
Yeah, as a callback to more old school MMOs that I grew up with, like EverQuest and all those. But anyway, so we have 2 more questions. Fort Team is asking, do you need a sync chart for each person in your guild?
Yes. You need to create a sync chart for every person who's going to want to reveal those things that you've got in your sync chart.
They're single-use items.
Yeah, they're single-use items, consumables, once you've created them.
And last questions. Neo Valkyrion, can transport ornithopters carry other ornithopters?
Yes, they can.
They can indeed.
They can indeed. I was playing it earlier. I was flying around carrying a medium ornithopter with my
they can
transport.
pick up pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And again, they have
anything
passengers
vehicular.
too.
Yes, vehicular. Can't pick up people.
No.
Unless they're...
Inside.
They're sitting inside a vehicle. All right. So that was it with the questions for today, and also for our last developer stream before Head Start and the official release. I'm like still like how. Okay, so
it's like 7
how
days,
how do you boys feel, gents?
Me
How do you
first?
feel?
Go, Scott.
Pretty good, right? So beta went really well from our perspective. The tech was stable, and that's what we're always worried about. Because we knew the game was pretty good, or we thought the game was really good, right? Yeah. And all the tests we had run showed that, but we were a little fearful, that tech would hold, and it went really, really well with the closed-ish beta, right? The weekend, where, you know, the server crash rate was low, the client crash rate was within our acceptable tolerance, and we're fixing most of the issues that we found. So cautiously optimistic, right? Incredibly excited to show the entire game, and so yeah.
See reactions.
But the last week is always yeah.
It's like it's 5 years of your life, right? And it's like I think that's the thing that I think is like what I'm not sure people understand. Is like when you've been living and breathing this kind of thing for 5 years, and then like you see the game industry is volatile.
Yeah.
Things don't go well for people. We have a team of, you know, that I love to work with. We have a team of great people that we've built over the last years, and it's like it isn't about like success in the sense of like, you know, oh, I just want to say that like, it is a game that I think is great, right? And I've played it and I kind of know that it has a lot going on, right? And I think it works well. And from the beta, we got some confirmation of that. But I want my team to be together making games for a long time, right? So for me, this is like, I'm nervous about that, right? Like the gaming industry is not a safe place anymore, right? It's not easy to guess what's going to be successful. I mean, I'm watching things and like, you know, you see things that are fantastic from small teams going great, like, you know, and there's been some fantastic games this year and games that you wouldn't have predicted coming out of nowhere, like Schedule 1 is a great one, but also like Claire Obscura, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't heard of it until really it blew up. And so you see these games, these huge successes. So I think it's like, you don't want to have the arrogance to think that you could be among that, but you hope. And that's kind of where I'm at least. I'm hoping we strike a vibe. I'm hoping that all the decisions that we made, and there's 10,000 decisions on a gaming project, right? There's 10,000 decisions, and every one of them is about moving towards a goal, right? Towards a vision, a creative vision, a vision of a universe, a vision that a guy created in 1963 when he wrote a book, right? And that's, I don't know, like I'm extremely nervous, but that's what we're trying to get to, right? And that's, I hope what people feel when they play the game is, yeah, okay, you nailed it, right? Like that's what we want.
And I feel like we've made an amazing Dune game, right? And it's the first where you're walking right on Arrakis, you're experiencing Paul's journey.
We're skipping 2001's Frank Herbert's Dune, sure.
But for me, right, in a modern sense anyway. So it's and we have a story when we want to tell. People saw a really short glimpse of it in the beta, but there's so much more going through the rest of Act 1 and Act 2, right? Playing through that. And there's this long story that we want to tell over the, you know, Lex, you said 10 years, right? On the thing, so I'm saying that. So we have a long story. We want to continue releasing updates, you know, every 3-4 months with additions to that story, in addition to the DLCs that we're going to come out. So when you buy the game, you're getting everything here right now, plus all the story content that we'll continue to release over the next years. So yeah, we're excited. It's a lot of pressure, but yeah, we'll do fine.
There's no guarantees in love and war, but you know what? I'll say this for the record. I'm really proud of our team and what they've done. And like, no matter what happens, all of them can hold their heads up high because they have worked really hard to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely. Shout out to our teams, the many teams that work on this game with all different departments.
Every department.
And absolutely, it's a beast of a game. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually getting goosebumps now. I'm sorry. I'm actually getting goosebumps. I'm sorry. Such a yeah. Anyway, but I think that's a wonderful note to end this last developer stream.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before Head Start and release. One thing we can actually say is that you will be able to upgrade your editions on the 10th of January. So there will be an option.
10th of June, I think.
10th of June. Oh my God! That wonderful ending. I just completely read.
That's fine.
Oh well.
Congratulations.
Anyway, pro here. Right? Yes, so 10th of June, when the game goes into full release, you will be able to upgrade your editions, should you want to do that. There will be options on Steam. And we'll be ending. Thank you so much again, Scott and Joel, for being here during out of your busy schedules. So we really appreciate it, talking to us. And we'll have a last trailer. And with that, I thank everyone for watching and joining us today. And hopefully you'll enjoy what's coming your way.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, see you on Thursday.
Yeah. Cheers.
So then, you're not quite dead.
Great plots are afoot in the Imperium. And the currents of intrigue run deeply. You will go to Arrakis as our agent. You have one task. Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
You were sighted fleeing the scene of a terrible crash. Who are you?
You've heard the expression, the spice must flow. I am the man who ensures that it continues to do so.
I dreamed of you. Bursting fire, twin comets in the sky, the seer of lies. I am terrified of what happens when you awaken.
We've all lost our way. You can complete the mission.
Every person carries their past with them.